All right, I'd like to call to order the Environmental and the Health and Environmental Protection Committee at 5:30 on September 18th, 2025. So our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the March 27th, 2025 committee meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes of March 27th, 2025.
I'll second.
All right. Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Number 2, discussion regarding the Parks Master Plan recommendations. And as a side point of that is to develop a short and long-term plan for existing and future parks acquisition and improvements. And a side step of that is land acquisition in District 4.
All right. Thank you and greetings. I think Ms. Jones and I are going to do a duet. So I'll just go ahead and begin. Catherine's been in a conference and she graciously flew back so she could attend this because it's of high importance.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to call it Advancing Premier Parks. And these are the main discussion points. We're just going to do a reiteration, a reminder about our larger county strategic plans and where Premier Parks fit. We'll talk about Parks Master Plan recommendations. We'll give you a current project status, and we'll talk about long-term plans, which include planning, improvements, and land acquisition. And then we'll talk about next steps and perhaps resources needed. So, to begin, this is the broader strategic goal for Premier Parks, which I won't read verbatim, but whether you want to say strategies or initiative keywords, because there were really 4, 5, 6 initiatives that had broader language. But I decided that using keywords would be more meaningful. So those keywords are investment in funding, land protection and acquisition, partnerships, and visitor experience, which becomes a little bit more operational. And while we may not be diving deep into future operations, I think that's something we're going to try to handle on a more annual basis when we have our foundations for strategies and plans in place. So, if you will recall, these are the broader and major Clemson strategic plan recommendations, and of course we have been earnestly trying to follow those recommendations and initiatives, and I think we're making reasonable progress, at least on the front end of them. So again, I won't go through each of these simply because we know that's a part of the bigger strategic plan for Premier Parks and meshes rather well. Maybe this is where I hand off to the better singer in the group, and if she wants to go through the next few slides, I encourage her to do so.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Glad to be here tonight, and just wanted to have the map up here just to kind of reinforce where our parks are. If you have a visual, I'm a visual person, and so it's just good to see kind of where our parks are in the county as we proceed with discussion tonight and setting those priorities. So Tom mentioned about capital project status on current parks, and so just kind of wanted to highlight some things that are going on right now. Allison Creek Park, the construction was completed there in November of 2023. Wood End, we're currently working through the kind of minimal access piece this year through the funds that were approved. The house is down, and they're working on hauling that off, and the next steps are going to be to look at constructing a parking lot and trails so that we can get folks out there to use the property. Thistle Park, I think we need to, an item that we might want to discuss later on, and you'll see that in an upcoming slide. Goat Farm, we're continuing to operate it with our market events monthly. Our upcoming event is on October 18th. We'll talk about kind of some future options here in a few minutes. Catawba Bend, phase one, you know, is under construction. That includes the entrance road, gatehouse, restrooms, hiking trails, the cross-country course is complete, parking lot. And then what's kind of already in the works is disc golf course, design and construction. So you may have seen that recently that came through on a council meeting. Mike, the mountain bike trail design and construction, we're also started the design phase of that. And then the Greenway Trail construction and the dam repair and pond remediation, those are getting ready to start here soon. Ebenezer Park, you know, phase two construction completed in April. We reopened in May. Things are going great there. Field Day Park, we're still under construction there with the addition of the pickleball courts, the maintenance facility, we're adding a batting cage. We added some safety netting and then the shade structure for the playground. We expect things to hopefully be finished up by November. Of course, some of the rain that we had back in July really didn't help some of our capital projects, but we're trying to make up for the time. Nannies, there was also funding this year that was approved, and we are working on designing those trails this fall. We typically wait for leaves to fall so that we can identify those designs. We're trying to do that in-house, and then the construction will bid out their Nannies. Veterans Park, there may be some further discussion in regards to that for the future. And then Worth Mountain, we're currently designing the parking area and the equestrian trails. That was funded through state earmark funds. So that's kind of everything that's in the works right now with parks. And then, so kind of moving into some short-term considerations on our current parks. Just capital project items to consider. These are, you know, next steps essentially. So kind of just outlined here, Catawba Bend, things that staff really sees as the next components. I think oftentimes we talk about, okay, what's next? We've made a huge, you know, start and opening that park, but we need to start kind of thinking about what do we want to do next and think about the design aspect. I'll tell you before I kind of get through all of these items at each of the properties, just coming from the National Parks and Recreation Association conference, one of the biggest things that we can do to set ourselves up for success is having shovel-ready projects. And that means fully designed, permits, you know, as far as you can get, and then bidding out the construction. Two, that allows us to better plan and go after grants. Allows us to plan as a county to fund those projects as opposed to kind of piecemealing it here and there. And so just from doing a little bit of that, I think my time being here, I think going forward, we can really set ourselves up for success to move forward with some design elements, get things fully designed, understand what that full cost is going to be, and then we know as staff what grants to go after. We know specifically if we want to go ask for federal or state earmarks, what the amount we need to ask for, and I think we're going to score higher if there's a scoring rubric or criteria that we have to meet because we have a shovel-ready project. So, you know, one of the items here is design and construction of the Greenway Trail. That's the remainder mileage of that Greenway Trail. We do have an LWCF cycle that's coming up. So there's an opportunity there to apply to get funding to maybe accomplish that. Next, and these are kind of in priority order, visitor center maintenance facility. If you've not been out there, we're using the existing infrastructure that Bowater had for our staffing. We've already outgrown what's there. We have basically an office box that's there that's accommodating our ranger and maintenance staff that we can turn into a storage facility later on. So we were very creative when we purchased that, but we're really going to need something that's going to, you know, house a full team 10 to 15 years from now. So we need to start kind of thinking about that as well as maintenance and where we want that located. Obviously, staff has ideas on that. Loop Road, you know, we've approved the entrance road to where our current infrastructure is. So what does the rest of that look like? We've got a stub out to get you to the mountain bike park, but I think thinking about finishing that loop road to connect that is an option. Continuing trails, I mean, we, in the Clemson Master Plan and seeing the public input, trails is high up, it's in the top 5 of uses. So naturally, we can continue building out hiking trails. The other elements is more infrastructure. As you know, we're having to build it out there. And so really to do other things or have other amenities or to fulfill those facility types on Catawba Bend property that's there on the master plan, we're gonna need the road infrastructure, whether that's a gravel road or paved road. We're gonna need it in parking areas to get folks, especially to the river. We have opportunities to put ramps in, but we've gotta get a road to there. So that's where you'll see it's not the sexy part, but it's what's gonna get us to that sexy piece. And then, we've got campground on here. Of course, we're sitting here thinking of, okay, well, if you build that south road, looking at opportunities where we can locate the campground, that's best use, and then it's also gonna generate us some revenue, right? So those are kind of some things to think about as far as Catawba Bend. Thistle and Go Farm, I think.
Real quick, I'm sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt.
sure.
Staff would love to host y'all out there at any point too. I think it would be worth your while to come out and see
Absolutely.
the progress.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is.
Is it ready? Because the last time we talked about it, it was just a dirt graded path to. and I
So
think it's kinda muddy and
they have
stuff.
put down 1 level of asphalt.
Have they?
Yes,
Okay.
and they will not put the finish until
Mhm.
like they're on their way out. So they've still got the pond to finish up. I think they're very close on the pond. That's the big pond that you come in and see. We're making that deeper, so that it can be better for fish habitat, because naturally it's gonna be right there and accessible to the parking areas and a focal point. So we really wanted to address that while they were having to rehab the dam and the road. Go ahead and make the pond deeper for better fish habitat. But yeah, they're moving along,
Okay.
as long as we can keep some dry weather. But yeah, so Thistle and Goat Farm, I think we just need to continue to have those discussions on, minimum access and explore opportunities there. Wood End, recommendation would be to maybe consider updating the concept plan, and then maybe consider fully designing the property to the uses that we want there. That way, again, it's shovel ready, we understand what the probable cost may be, and then we can go and pursue grants. We're gonna score a lot higher, and/or, even in some conversations with state delegation and federal, we may have some opportunities if special projects come back up, the opportunity to submit those. We know exactly how much it's gonna cost to maybe do phase 1. Maybe we can't build the whole thing, but we know we can work with somebody, a design firm, to determine how we can build it out in phases, to where it would be achievable for us from a funding standpoint. Field Day Park, this is an item that hadn't been talked about probably enough, but the county owns 18 acres. If you pull out of Field Day Park and you're at the 4-way or really the 2-way stop, instead of turning right to go back out to Highway 274, if you go across into the cul-de-sac, there's a pump station back over in there, but we own 18 acres. And what was approved in last year's budget was to conduct like a feasibility study. There was a lot of push to kind of see what could we do with that property, because naturally we're kind of busting at the seams at Field Day Park, and I think there was some appetite to explore, could we get any more field space in there? And so we're working through that right now, doing the feasibility study with a consultant. But perhaps we look for funding to do a full design there, can incorporate some things that would come out of public input sessions, and get a piece open there, more passive. And then Worth Mountain, look to design and construct additional equestrian trails and then add the restrooms. If you remember, we submitted a special project with state delegation last year, was awarded the $750,000, which is allowing us to do a parking area and some equestrian trails now. The intent was to go back and request another $750,000 to do additional trail mileage and then add restrooms. And then this year, I think they took the special projects off the table, So that opportunity, you know, did not exist this year. So maybe kind of looking into that, you know, adding some more trails and restrooms there.
Okay.
Pass it back, yeah, pass it
Okay,
back to you.
and I'll give you my baritone or nighttime FM DJ vocals. Okay, going back to the keyword initiatives, investment and funding, partnerships, and so forth. Now, when we talk about investment in funding, we're not talking about directing appropriations yet, but engaging in activities that's going to help us determine what future appropriations and appropriation opportunities can be. While it's challenging, we've challenged ourselves, hopefully, as we go into the FY27 budget process, to put together a 10-year CIP. And after speaking with Jonathan Buono today, we have an idea or a concept which I think will help save us some money on consulting costs, because many communities typically do a long-term parks or parks and recreation master plan. But when they do those plans, they include certain elements that are also included in a comprehensive plan. Because in a separate standalone plan, they're going to have to do population and demographic analysis. They're going to have to look at land use and all of these things. And you know, after talking to Jonathan, we believe it's possible within the confines, or at least it's not prohibited, that in our comprehensive plan, we could tee up the analysis, link it to future land use, and also help come up with initiatives that both support our capital plans and our operations. And if we're successful in doing that, and it also coincides with the next comprehensive plan update, which I believe is mandated, and this particular update coming up has a 10-year window, much like we'd like to do with the 10-year capital plan. So we believe we can put a parks and recreation element in the comprehensive plan, and while the typical missing piece in a traditional parks master plan is the operational side, we think we have the bones to go ahead and address that on an annual basis, because it'll be more certain when we know what kind of funding is going to be available. And then, I don't know if all of you are aware, but currently it's on the market. We've got it on the market for a Trails Plan RFP, and I think that would be a good direct link to what we're trying to do in economic development with Project Trails Mix, or Trail Mix, not plural, forgive me. Now, partnerships.
But we do hope to have more than one trail, so.
Oh, yes.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely. We want to have a good broader plan, and as you know, we want to have linkage to the Carolina Thread Trail. As far as partnerships, although they can be many, we think that it's important to have a Parks Foundation, where we obviously would accept private donations and corporate sponsorship. But because of Catherine's experience, would you want to lean into that a little bit?
Sure. I think right around the time I started here, I think there were talks of a Parks Foundation, and I think it came spearheaded from just the development of Catawba Bend. But in my experience, a Parks Foundation that's countywide is going to serve us, you know, larger, right? But it's still going to allow for the opportunities for, you know, dedicated funding to go towards specific parks or a specific project within a park. And it's going to open up a lot of doors and opportunities for us from a funding standpoint to accept those. I mean, to be honest, we have some, it's few, but we do have some that are asking about that now. So I think the opportunity's there, especially, you know, with the collaboration of our communications and kind of marketing side of things, to really be able to push it, I think it's gonna be a huge, opportunity for us, with the Parks Foundation.
To elaborate on that, maybe not specifically a Parks Foundation, but a foundation for York County, the York County Foundation, that has a parks leg, has a trail leg, has other legs that you can contribute to. It's the same way the Rockville School District operates, and our local foundation that used to be housed out of York County and outside of Charlotte. But I think that would meet the future needs as you look at trail mix. So we're working on projects right now where we're asking people to contribute to the trails in the area that
That's right.
attach and lead us to other areas around the county. So I think a broader scope, and there was a project done 4 years ago that was almost ready for
Mhm.
passage, including the recommendation of a board to manage the foundation.
Mhm.
So I think we ought to be looking at a county foundation so that we can incorporate different subcategories that could be a part of the foundation to collect money like parks.
Yeah, and we had a small internal discussion about it, and we're aware that, you know, some of the work has been done, and we intend to try to mine that information from the sources who were working on it at the time, so we don't necessarily have to waste time by reinventing the wheel.
That's right.
Going into land protection and acquisition, and these are just viewpoints, and you may want to have broader dialogue with regard to opportunities in District 4. You know, I've spoken with Councilman Roddy semi-frequently. I think there may be at least one opportunity to acquire some land in the district. Nothing is certain, but nothing is time-sensitive either, in my best estimation. But, you know, just District 4 has some good geography to it, and, you know, this may open up the conversation, because one of the things I think the Clemson plan suggested, and it would just be logical, is to create community or neighborhood scale parks. So I think when you're building out a system, and again, going back to this master planning, if we can identify and manage the direction where growth is going, then it becomes more logical to figure out approximately where you want those kinds of facilities, right? And then when you look at Western York and elsewhere, of course, there's a very rural section of, large section of Western York, but we think we have an opportunity for collaboration, first with the city of York and the town of Clover. But as those things develop, which at the same time, we're not ignoring the smaller municipalities, Sharon, Smyrna, Hickory Grove, and McConnell's. We're having good and engaging dialogue with their mayors and officials. So I think with the planning that we hope and intend to do, we can make those relationships even firmer and better. And then we also have a tremendous asset in York Forever as well. So then when it comes to the visitor experience, as we're trying to lay all of this groundwork, that's where I go back to what I said before. We're going to focus on an annual basis using the plans and the CIP and as a guide, and looking at either general appropriations or other sources. We want to be able to build the operational capacity matching the CIP, the comp plan, and so forth. And we only have one more slide left, but if you wanted to talk a little bit deeper about District 4 now, or wait until the end, it's your option.
What's on the next slide?
Recommendations, and then the next one is thank you and comments. So, recommended next steps at your will and pleasure. Revisit foundation establishment, begin now. Utilize CIP, Foundation, and York Forever to strategize land acquisition for future parks and trails to be determined. Develop annual operations plans that sync up with available funding and logically with the planning that we do. And the transitions are a little disoriented too. But with this particular bullet, I have to say with, I guess, gratitude and compliments that the strategic plan process that you engaged in or began before I came here over the last 10 months, I'm fascinated, kind of going back to opportunities, but opportunities that we have to collaborate not only with our internal departments but the community as well. But in this particular bullet, you know, we want to work closely with PDS, engineering, and economic development, or other willing and able internal partners on the trails plan, the 10-year CIP framework, and of course the comprehensive plan with Parks and Rec element. But
And real quick, just to talk about the CIP process, internally, that's something that we start in October. And so we're working, and Catherine, you know, get ready for a meeting on your calendar here shortly, because I was talking to Trish about this today. Internally as staff, we've got to develop what we think should be in the CIP. This current CIP, we really just had current projects we were working on. And I think y'all remember in the budget process, we're like, hey, y'all want to talk capital? I think y'all gave us the direction, let's stick with what we got, and then let's spend some time being strategic and thinking about the future. We're at the point where we're, as staff, going to really spend some hard time this fall doing that, and any input y'all have in that on the front end will be helpful, and then we'll circle back around to the full council as part of budget workshops in that kind of late winter timeframe. So that's kind of where we're at in the CIP, but we really want to have a defined CIP for parks and recreation this time. And we think we do have some available funding in our capital project account if we begin to think about the future, because there is a healthy fund balance in that fund.
So I have a thought to share. So when we started working on the Parks Master Plan a year ago, and we hired Bob Rookover from Clemson to initiate our first iteration of the Parks Plan, with the plan to have a second iteration of that. We weren't really talking about trails. So just recently, with the involvement that I've had being chairman of economic development, thinking through where our trails actually may go around the county, and then sitting on this committee and being aware of what we're talking about with parks. And then you think about green space, you think about preserving green space, agricultural land reserved as green space, maybe even working farms. I'm beginning to think, as I'm looking at maps, I was in a meeting earlier today looking at maps of York County, looking at proposed trails connecting two areas, a commercial node and a residential node, and how the trail would meander its way between these 2 points. And you can't help but to think, just like on Little Sugar Creek Parkway, if you haven't been, I'm going to encourage you to get on an e-bike or get on your bike or walk and head up that trail that runs from Fort Mill all the way to uptown Charlotte. It's impressive. But you'll see they have parks planned off the trail system.
Mhm.
You literally can go off the trail system into a park. So now I'm beginning to think about how the two of these really tie together well, which is another reason why I believe that we need a York County Foundation that would house money for multiple entities, even things we haven't thought about yet, but the two on the board right now are trails and parks. So it's interesting how the two, in my opinion, tie together. As I began to look at this map
Sure.
today, I'm not gonna pull it out and show it, but I was thinking about how important these parks, whether they're pocket parks or whatever they're gonna be, different types of parks, how impactful they can be to the future culture of York County. The Elizabeth area over on the eastern side of York County and Fort Mill, your area in Lake Wiley, even the municipalities like you mentioned. So anyway, I think it broadens the scope and takes us in a little different direction. I mean, we weren't even thinking about collaborating with the Carolina Red Trail last year or 3 months ago, but now we've had that conversation, and it does make sense to collaborate with them.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense to think about residential development. So if a tract builder's coming in to build 1,000 homes, what role are they playing in helping create the culture of York County as it relates to parks and trails?
Well,
Commercial, industrial,
Right.
it all falls in there.
well, and as we build trails in the unincorporated area, I mean, those are gonna fall under the purview of parks, so. So I
Right.
think, I mean, this really is, I would just lump trails underneath Parks Master Plan, and
Yeah.
the Trails Master Plan is gonna feed into that, but, I didn't know if you wanna talk about the comp plan too, Tom.
Well, it also makes me think of something that was omitted here. Of course, as you know, the ED committee is aspiring to, and eventually the P and Z committee, if that overlap occurs and it advances, the small area plans. And the small area plans also give an excellent opportunity to put under the microscope the prospects for those community scale and neighborhood parks that we're talking about, in addition to any policy tools. For example, if we were to use zoning tools that follow the small area plans, you know, we could look into open space standards, requirements for developments, if it's mixed use and so forth. So, forgive me for not thinking of that. But, the comp plan, I think, is an opportunity to help us take that broader 10-year look. I still think we have to push with a 10-year CIP, but the good thing about CIPs, and really along with any other kinds of plans that you have, you can use all the other planning tools you're working with to make adjustments, because the CIP really pigeonholes the money we're gonna need and where to try to find it. And,
Just building off of that real
Yeah.
quick, the other thing y'all funded was a impact fee study.
yeah.
And, you know, we're a long ways from that. We're gonna work on that study this year. But one of the findings might be to have an impact fee put towards parks. Right, so that could be a funding mechanism too, which is, that's what Tom's alluding to there.
Very much so. So, you know, what we're really trying to do is put more tools in our toolbox, is the way I personally look at it, and I think the director and Mr. County Manager does too. But these, again, are the recommended next steps, and with that, I think we're finished and open for questions and comments.
I want to make one more comment off of what you said a second ago, and that ties around collaboration, which I'm thankful that we embarked upon the strategic plan, because it's led us down a pretty powerful road, right? It's causing this county to really think and evolve and collaborate. So, you know, here we are talking now about how planning and zoning, economic development, and parks are collaborating. Think about how powerful it is as we begin to work on our Trails Master Plan study. When we go talk to a commercial industrial company that wants to come into York County, and they're gonna take part in helping us create the parks and the trails plan, which just makes them more of an attractive employer in the area. And I won't even mention areas of the county where I know this just makes complete sense. But it connects them more as an employer, but it connects them into our culture too. And they actually can contribute to it. They can help fund it, right? Because their employees could be utilizing it, which takes, if you think about transportation, you hope that it takes people off the roads and more people on the trails, and they live in the area where they work, like our parents did years ago. They lived in a community, right? And they got what they needed in their community. Did they go out of their community? Yes. But you create a community, and that's why that small area plan and the corridor study and all that stuff is so important. But it ties into the parks and the trails and what we need to be doing with planning and zoning too.
Well, my concern with that is it's a really big undertaking, and with something of that level, to do that kind of work, would we need to push the phase two up, the phase two consultant in faster to get an overview, or to lay out areas better? While I agree with getting the commercial or, you know, any commercial development coming in, industries coming in, you know, if they're coming to an area that's not conducive to having green space, there's no point in forcing them to do the green space or have a trail on their property if we can't get there. But to be able to pull in all the data from, Rock Hill. Rock Hill's got a parks network and a trails network that we need to be able to tie in ours. It doesn't make any sense for their trails to just end somewhere and ours are half a mile down the road or something, or 5 miles down the road. The other thing with compiling all this data is the smaller municipalities also making sure that we're tied in with them and what their plans are, again, so that we're all working together. And as a bigger part of that, I was reading some density alleviation type things, and they have mitigation, green space mitigation. So if you come in and say the industry is coming to somewhere that it doesn't make sense for us to put something, they're contributing to another area that we picked out that needs that. But as part of that future, I like having the big overview, but where does that come in the CIP also? Because we've got a big mess of projects going on currently. We've got a lot of land out there that the residents of every area want to see completed. And then if we tell them, oh, well, we're doing this plan, we decided we're gonna look at even more park space to purchase it ahead of time, I don't want to sour them on the funding for this, because they're gonna say, oh, well, y'all just keep taking our tax money and we aren't getting any use out of any of it, because nothing's really coming open. And, the two parks that are kind of open now are two that have been open forever.
Okay, so, just a, general question. What, is your, and you won't be able to answer this tonight, I don't think, but you might, what is your best guess estimate when our parks will be ready for everybody to go and love and enjoy?
I think that depends on, well, are you talking about just minimum access, just getting them open where
I'm
people
saying
are
to
fully,
get our parks
completely done?
completely done.
Which ones? Just
Our parks.
The
Existing.
that
We've
we
got
I
have.
think
one
that
on that.
depends upon the funding that's available to completely, fully build them out.
Go
Until,
back to that slide.
I think until-
Can you go back to that slide that has the current?
I think until we
Well, and
know the
I'm
funding
gonna-
mechanisms,
yeah.
it's hard to determine, because, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, and let's just take the Greenway, for example. I mean, the last kind of estimation we got is like 2 million a mile for just Greenway. So that puts it in perspective for you. I think, I think it was like to date, it was roughly around 7.5 million that we spent at Catawba Bend. I mean, you go adding roads and infrastructure, I mean, you're talking about, a hefty lift to completely build out, full build out, if that's what you're asking.
Well, that, Andy and I were talking earlier, and that is, a consideration for, land acquisition, not necessarily the District 4. I think should be looked at, but for future wherever. Because the communities are seeing this, or maybe they're not even seeing this, they don't maybe even know about it. And I think that we need to, make a concentrated effort to at least get a good portion of our parks done before we start more projects, because then it's just like, I feel like we're just spinning our wheels. And it's very frustrating for me, and I would hope it would be for all of you guys, that, we can't seem to get,
Well, I would express, and this is my view, and of course, county manager can chime in too. I would look at this first or initial 10-year CIP as kind of a placeholder for now, and I don't see us getting overly aggressive with it. But then if you look at all of the planning initiatives that we're trying to pursue, as those things conclude and begin to gel, then I think we'll have a clearer picture of what the long term is. But I can't remember, there was a phrase in the Clemson plan, it was something like catch up now and then begin to grow or something like that.
Yeah,
We
that's
we
what
know
we
we
did.
have to
Yeah.
do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's some questions out there on the table. I want to make sure we get to all of them. So the question is, what current parks will we aim to finish first, and to what degree would we consider finished?
Yeah.
Because you've got the
That's
stuff,
the list I'd like to see.
you got the phase two at Catawba Bend, then you have the dreams at Catawba Bend, and I think,
Yeah.
I think to some degree, those dreams will be public-private partnerships, of things that could go out there, but I think this is a good list for what could be in phase two. We could generate an estimated cost at this point, bring back to the
There
community to
you go.
share,
Yeah.
and share
That
that.
was part two of my question.
And I think the Wood End one would be the next one that we would want to finish,
Mhm.
which to Catherine's point earlier, we really want to work with the Bethel Lake Wiley Committee to kind of reimagine a concept plan, knowing what we know now. So with $2.5 million left and $500,000 budgeted this year, that's Bethel Lake Wiley's last contribution to whatever we build up there. So anything above that is a York County contribution from the full county. So I think we've got to weigh that and have a plan to recognize that. So that's, I think this committee can help, again, get further feedback from Goat Farm and Thistle in light of that. And I think that's a different bucket. And then this field day bucket's another one. Because in the budget process, we talked about the potential for someday Bethel Lake Wiley to be unwound and be truly county parks in 6 or 7 years. And we've reduced the millage this year in a way that we're planning towards that over that 6-year period. So we cut the millage a little bit to be representative of that. Field day is a little bit different. You might not need to do it for field day. It might stay in tax district long term. The fundamental question is, are we going to have more field days? And if we don't, we should keep it a tax district on its own, right? But if someday in 5 years we change that perspective, then that might make sense too. But at this point, it doesn't. So that's a standalone financial bucket, and so that project could be paid for out of that same bucket in the future too.
Well,
So the complexity is that the financial pieces aren't one and the same. They're all from different places.
and you bring up, one of your comments up, do we do another field day? Well, listening to kind of what we were talking about with these parks, I think we need a tighter vision. Right now,
Yeah.
we're having this grand dream vision, but this idea of, are we gonna have, we need, in my opinion, we need a vision of, are we gonna do massive county-sized parks? Or are we gonna do neighborhood parks? We're gonna do community parks? Or do we let the municipalities run the community parks? We let the neighborhoods, by directing them through zoning, have neighborhood parks, and the county needs to focus on really big things that can't be accomplished by anybody else except for county level.
Yep.
And so with that, when we're looking at parks, how many do we have in an area? So, Rock Hill has a ton of parks. So if you draw those out, maybe within, all the residents in a district or in an area or within a couple miles of a park, I think we need to have a vision, so we're not just out there doing a whole lot of stuff and doing it poorly. We need focus, so we do it.
So is this
really
really the
good.
original question, you're asking if we need to hire a consultant
Yeah.
to help us
That
kind of go to
kinda-
the phase two? Or do we feel like staff can handle it?
Another
Or can you handle it to
No,
a
it's,
point?
it's it's a,
Hand
it's a
it off to a
follow,
consultant?
it's
Handle
a
it to
follow
a point, I would
of
You can handle it up to the
what
point.
Clemson did.
and
Well,
then-
Clemson did an overview, a big picture. Now we're in the finer, how do you actually implement this big picture?
Well, I was gonna say this, I don't think it hurts to have green space.
Oh, I'm not against green,
Just-
yeah.
Let's just have some green space. Why does it have to have a this and a that and a this and a that on it?
But part of that goes to,
No, I'm serious.
yeah, the funding of it though, and
I mean, you
which
got it.
leads
It's
into the
there.
second
Let it
portion
sit,
here.
let it sit and percolate.
But there's multiple ways to save green space without the county buying all the green space.
Right.
That's why York County Forever is
Well,
at least
yeah.
giving me a presentation. maybe you already know everything, you know, but that goes into that green space acquisition.
But I do think District 4 is a priority.
Well, and I think what we would say, and Tom, maybe you can differentiate, because the question I think that's on the table is, what's the difference between hiring a consultant to come in and finish the Parks Master Plan? Because in theory, we've got half of the plan. And what would it take to, what level of detail would we get if we had a consultant do engagement and take what we have and then look at everybody else's plans and map out the future with council's input and residents versus the comp plan element from whoever we hire to do the comp plan? Like, what's the level of difference you think of detail and what would we be missing? Hard to project, but it would be different.
Well, I'll put it in another way, sort of a same play, different formation kind of analogy, but in my personal / professional experience, in the county I worked in before for a very long time, which had a great track record in Georgia, not only for its facilities, but its programs, for the scale of size that we were. They traditionally, going back to the 1990s, I think, had a traditional parks master plan where, yeah, you are going to be picking up the population and demographic analysis and land use and things like that, but it doesn't dwell on it to the detail of a comp plan. Probably lists a lot of information from a comp plan or a comp plan update. But then it begins to talk futuristically about the kinds of lands and facilities that you're going to need, because you have to remember, York County is going to continue to be on a growth trajectory for a period of time. And I've noticed, and sadly my old age, that, you know, each new generation has a different kind of demand for parks and recreation services. So having said all that, I think we benefited when I was back in Georgia from having that traditional Parks Master Plan, which is going to be more expensive, but we were committed at the governing body level down to the staff to following that plan, and I think that's why we had a Parks and Recreation Department that received a lot of praise statewide. So if it were my preference, I think we'd go the traditional way, but, you know, I know the discussion of consultants can sometimes be difficult, but if you wanted to save money, you could piecemeal it into the comprehensive plan. But my true and firm recommendation would be a traditional Parks Master Plan.
And Diane's here too, if you want to talk anything to his comp plan too.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Tom. I think you'll get a bigger, more robust one if you do a specific Parks and Rec plan. But then I do understand sometimes that can be sort of difficult to get through to get the funding for another consultant for a plan. We can certainly include it, like Jonathan was saying, as an element. We have in the past, years ago, we had an open space element within the comprehensive plan. So that was a standalone that we added to the plan itself. Didn't carry forward in the future, but so we've done that in the past. We have done specific elements for that. Like Tom was saying, you're gathering the same data for both processes, so you are being able to utilize that part of the process both times with the comp plan and a park rec, so therefore you're saving some money by doing it that way. So it's a kind of a give and take. Timing wise, we'll be adding the comp plan to our budget for next year, so I think they're kind of tracking together. I think timing wise, the comp plan and a park and recs plan, so you'd somewhat be doubling up. You spend the same money for the same information, so there's benefit of doing the two together.
And I would only conclude by saying, you know, while there might be some distaste at times for doing things like this with consultants, they bring more speed and expertise.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe in the time I've been here, York County is at a critical mass with the future growth that we expect, with the aspirations through the strategic plan of what kind of community that we want to be. So I don't think we should discount the value that good consultants who can produce good plans can bring.
Do you feel like you all have completed enough due diligence at this point that you could give an experienced person that works with master plans for parks, you could get them what they needed to get started quickly?
I think so. Like the small area plans, you know, we can do certain things that mitigate the cost, but as I always say, you have to give the consultants a very defined scope
Yes.
and create expectations, because when they have to guess what you want, the cash register starts ringing.
Well, I was trying to think of what we paid our last consultant, it wasn't a
It's like
lot.
50 grand.
Yeah, Catherine, maybe you could speak to how you got that price and what you couldn't do because of the.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, Clemson doing it, I mean, they're a state institution, right? So they have faculty there and the dean of the accredited department, you know, that's within the PRTN department, and grad students help facilitate those plans. So there's some cost savings there because of, you know, them being a state institution and utilizing staff plus grad students to formulate the plan. And, you know, the benefit of using an entity like Clemson, they just completed the state SCORE plan. So they updated the 5-year, it's the South Carolina Outdoor Recreation Plan. We have to use that plan when we submit for any federal or state grants most of the time. So we reference that outdoor plan regularly, and Clemson just facilitated that, you know, updated plan for SCPRT in Columbia.
So when I chaired this committee last year, we worked on the master plan, I reached out to the larger counties in South Carolina and asked who did they work with on the master plan for parks. And I was referred to the gentleman that did our plan and another person that are both affiliated with Clemson. They actually are doing a lot of the plans in the state of South Carolina. So that's
They, I mean,
kinda how we
they
relate.
go to our conferences, so they are out there trying to learn the trends and, you know, things that we go and learn. Obviously, they've got the utilities, or the softwares and things that they need to do it, and expertise.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they're in it, they understand, even down to our operations for the most part, which is hard to, you know, define in a consultant, a private consultant at times too.
So if we were gonna hire a
But-
consultant in tax year 2025, are we talking about 2025 or 2026, how would we compensate them? How would we pay for this?
Well, I think the question is, you know, what we'd ask them to do, how much it is, and could Clemson finish it or not?
That's right, so what we did before is we identified the scope, and then we obtained, you know, basically quotes or bids, based upon that scope. So I think if you remember, I brought the scope to council, we kind of, approved and got the direction of that scope, and then I proceeded from there.
So what we're saying is we want to make a motion to ask council to authorize our Assistant County Manager, Tom Couch, and Parks and Recreation Director to go define the scope of a Phase 2 Parks Master Plan.
We don't even need that for a motion. Wouldn't they just do it as part of this committee
We couldn't report back.
and
Yeah.
report back, here's what the scope, and then we would kind of
Do the scope.
think about
and
the
then
scope and then run the
report back
scope to the rest
So
of
we
it.
kind of ran into this at our meeting, our ED meeting 2 nights ago. We decided to go ahead and make it formal.
Mhm.
But.
You just
if
do a
you made
motion
it-
to explore the cost of a finishing the Parks Master Plan.
Okay.
Something like that, and then we can.
Can I ask a
Scope or cost,
question
yeah.
about the original plan? So
Mhm.
how much of the original plan, did we use everything that he recommended in that plan?
You guys approved a big chunk of that. I mean, we're trying to push forward with those elements that were recommended in the plan, and they are really, some of them are even reflected in our departmental strategic plan as well as the Premier Parks goal, which is, you know, part of the entire county plan. So, yes, I mean, I think we have, utilized, and recognized a lot of the recommendations as, I mean, you say immediate need, I mean, a lot of them address the immediate needs, things that we need to be thinking about now. So the element that, the piece that we are missing is kind of the future and where do we place future parks or acquiring property.
Because the presentation Catherine gave, and Joe, yeah, you, or were you, the first? You were
I was here.
The first presentation for this committee was about the current and current staffing needs, but also the current parks needs. And those are things that y'all have funded in the last 2 years.
So
You
when
you actually have taken care of
When
those
you
two
hired
things.
him, you just knew that we were gonna have to have a second phase.
Well, he kind of recommended it, that we would have to look at the future parks later. They
That's
did
right.
engagement, and there's a survey attached to it, so you conceivably, as Tom said, you could take that information
So,
and hand that off to somebody to finish and
Sure.
and do
Okay.
That's right.
a
so you're
mapping.
thinking that one of the things you're gonna recommend in the scope is gonna be future parks?
Absolutely. I mean, we have to, that's one of the major reasons you put that kind of plan together.
Well, it helps with development in that, so if we know we need a park in a certain area,
The development's
if a
coming in.
development's coming, we can either get it set aside or get them to help set it aside, so we're not having to. Correct. So that they can donate it
And
to
then
us.
too, you know, I think where staff comes in is we can work with a consultant to help determine the types of parks and the needs that there are in the communities, cause, you know, y'all mentioned Rock Hill has a lot of parks. We're not gonna go drop a park that's exactly like what they already have there right next door, you know what I mean? So I think understanding what our needs are, what we're seeing from a Parks and Recreation department, what we're asked about, what we're called upon, do we have this, this, and this, looking at, you know, working with planning department, understanding what developments are coming in, to determine what's gonna go on that property. We may want it to be passive, right, but maybe the property, or maybe we determine that it needs to, have some more active elements on it, but the property's not conducive for that. So understand, I think they kind of go hand in hand, because you need to start thinking about, what is it that we need to provide, in the future from a recreation standpoint, from amenities. I think it's a mix of open green space, and then, you know, when we say programming, you know, we're looking at how to activate the park, right? What elements do you build on the park to accommodate and meet those needs of our citizens?
I think
And so it's gonna vary based upon the area of the county.
Wasn't that written in the phase one? He said, you know, we've done this survey, we know here's what the community wants, now we gotta figure out where to put those
Mhm.
items
Mhm.
out and about,
Mhm.
so that they're in the correct areas.
And I should mention this, because I think it has a little bit of value. You know, if we're being asked to define a scope, and maybe with something like parks and or recreation, it would be helpful to get some informal guidance, if nothing else, on the amount of stakeholder involvement, because that can drive costs. But if stakeholder involvement, broader stakeholder involvement is desired, we can obviously fit that in. But, you know, maybe the stakeholders can be reduced to more traditional community institutions like your school districts, your chambers, you know, folks who are in those types of organizations. But, I mean, planning, as a planning always does best with broader stakeholder analysis, but if you want faster movement, you probably have to, shall I say, regulate the stakeholder involvement a little bit, but yet be as inclusive as possible.
All right, you can make a motion.
If that's what.
I'll try to craft and think through it. I've been just taking notes, so, all right. So I'm gonna withdraw the motion that I threw out there a few minutes ago. So I'd like to make a motion that we ask staff to present our committee with the scope of a long-term parks master plan, that a consultant may be able to we may be able to hire a consultant to, this is too wordy. Let me back up. I guess we want to make a motion to engage staff to work on a long-term Parks and Recreation master plan for consideration.
That's good.
And
Okay.
deal
I'll
with
second.
consultant later.
All right, got a motion and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just for the benefit of Catherine and the planning staff, I want to be sure that, don't consider any shock to this. This isn't going to be a burden. I think what we're being asked to do, like with the ED committee, is just tee things up. And I think we're all capable of doing it.
Yeah, I think just an outline for the
Mhm.
very beginning.
So,
Because this is a long process. I don't see it going any faster.
Well, we've made
Yeah.
good progress on the small area plans, for example, so I think we can use the same rhythm and momentum.
All right. If we can now move on to number 3, the York County Forever. If you already know this, I don't think there's going to be any motions coming out of this one. This one was really for my information, or for our information.
Okay, I'm Trish DeHaan, I'm the open space planning, I'm an open space planner in the Planning and Development Services Department in the Planning Division, and you probably already know the planning manager, Diane Dill, and we work together on a lot of things, including York County Forever, which has been around for 27 years. And a couple years ago, we celebrated our 25-year anniversary, and some of you participated in those events. And the Public Information Office created a really nice video for us, which is available on our website. Am I pointing it in the right direction?
Big button.
Big button. Should I stand at the computer to?
No, it worked fine for Tom. Diane, she's
put the
pressing the
video.
right
Pressing the
button.
right button.
She's
It
pressing
might
the right
be-
button.
it may
That'll
be
work.
an angle.
See the power right
That's how my
Or
Roku
battery.
remote. My Roku
I don't mind
remote works
going to
just
the
like that.
computer and pushing the button.
I think it seems like it's frozen.
Not working. Okay, so thank you for those of you for participating in that. And,
That's all, we're done.
so we have a nice website, and here's my card, and there's a QR code on the back of the card that leads you right to the York County Forever website, which is on the county.
Try launching it at the next
Yeah,
slide,
that's
just
what I
in
was
case it freezes
But
again.
that one
if
had
you
an
can.
embedded video there.
Yeah.
So that's our website. The commission was established in 1998 by York County Council. One of the champions was Kerwood Chapel. And it kind of got off to a slow start. It took about 3 years to really get going for the commission to start meeting. But York County Forever is basically our land conservation organization. So our little motto is preserving our past, protecting our future, and peach trees in bloom. So it was formed in response to a lot of citizen concerns about rapid urbanization, population growth, and land development back in 1998. This was recognized. There was a lot of loss of open space, scenery, and the unique character of York County. And it was really forward thinking at the time. A lot of other counties are just now establishing their county-based programs, sort of based on a catalyst that York County Forever has provided. So the response was that we needed to preserve and protect our significant natural, cultural, and historic resources. And we've developed partnerships with nonprofits, other public agencies, and private landowners. And we've utilized our relatively limited funding to preserve over 11,700 acres of unique York County resources. So the York County Forever is encoded in the York County Code. It's about 4 pages long. It's a little bit repetitive because it uses the same terminology over and over again, and that's okay to emphasize the goals and purpose of the organization. So it was amended twice in 2003, 05, and 17, basically to provide clarification about the composition of the commission and a few other things. And it was determined in 2005 that the land didn't have to be purchased for the county to own it, that we could put conservation easements on private property. So it was basically a waiver of the requirement that county actually own the land. Okay, so the commission is made up, we call it the 7+2. So we have 7 commissioners that are the voting members of the commission. They represent each of the 7 county council districts, and y'all have been great about promoting participation and nominating people to serve on the commission. And they can serve up to 2 terms. And then we have 2 ex officio members that don't vote, and they represent the Nation Ford Land Trust and the York County Culture and Heritage Commission. We meet monthly in Rock Hill normally, but we've been meeting in the Government Center because of construction at the Heppel Complex. And what the commission does is recommend funding conservation projects, and then they go to county council for approval. So the original goal, when the York County Forever Commission was formed, the Palmetto Conservation Foundation was in existence then. And they were very active and participated in every meeting and came up with a lot of the processes and the criteria for inclusion. But their original goal that they established in concert with the Nation Ford Land Trust and the York County Forever Commission was to conserve 10,000 acres by 2010. I think it kind of overshot that a little bit. But Nation Ford Land Trust is our partner. So when we place a conservation easement on a piece of property, Nation Ford Land Trust holds the conservation easement, and they go out annually to check the property to make sure that the easement criteria are being followed. There are no encroachments or problems or things going on just because people didn't know or weren't paying attention. So they're voluntary agreements. The conservation easements are individualized for each property. They can say different things. There's sort of a template, but they can vary a little bit from place to place because every place is not the same. And they last forever. So if property changes hands, it goes with the property. Funding. Okay, this is actually an older spreadsheet, and I was able to get one from last year, and I've requested the new updated one from our finance department. If anybody is interested, I can give you this current one or the upcoming one. But basically, I know it's a little hard to read, there's a lot of information there, but the 3rd column is the millage. So when the commission was first established, we received 1 mill per year. And then in 2009, 2010 fiscal year, it is zeroed out. So there was no funding. So we utilized the fund balance to continue operations. And also at that time, personnel came out of the York County Forever budget or fund. But then in 2017-18, the millage was reestablished at the rate of a quarter mill per year. But you can see in the 2nd column, the value of a mill has like tripled since the year 2001 when that chart begins. So our fund continues to grow. We spend the money goes back in. It's not like we have a certain budgeted amount each year that we have to spend. We could do that, but we don't, because if a great project comes along, we don't want to miss that opportunity because we spent the money on something else. When it was first started, there was some money that was spent like on acquisition of Worth Mountain, which is owned by the county but managed by the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. And that's what one of those columns represents, the debt payment for Worth Mountain. So right now, the fund balance is about $1.9 million. And we spend wisely. So each project that we put a conservation easement on costs between like $25,000 and $40,000, depending on the size of the property, because it's Nation Ford Land Trust comes with the budget and it's prorated based on the size. We have 41 different properties that we've conserved since 1998.
And is that the 11,000?
Yeah, that adds up to
700 acres.
11,700. So some of them are acquisitions, fee simple acquisitions that the county owns or some other public entity owns. Most of them are private property with a conservation easement on it. And I'm just gonna whip through these really quick. They're on your sheet. If you have any questions, we can talk about it later, because I know everybody kind of done for the day. Okay, so these are some of the projects. And the reason I did this was because I wanted to show you the diversity in size, location, and the resources that are preserved. A lot of them are farms. Okay. We added on 4 properties to the original base property for historic Brattonsville. Over the years, we've built upon what's already there. So we have natural, cultural, historic, and scenic resources. This is an endangered plant at 10 Acre Rock in Clover. Cotton Hills Farm. Oh, there it is. Thought it disappeared. Okay. This last one, we're gonna add on to, which is on our agenda. So some people come back, they like it so much, they wanna do more conservation.
You passed Kirsch, was that Herb Kirsch?
Yes, he used to be the mayor of Clover.
Yeah, he was a state representative.
Yeah. This one, I'm just gonna stop at real quick, is a working farm, has frontage on Fishing Creek, so it preserves farmland, watershed, and a historic burial site for enslaved African Americans, they think. And they found 144 graves there. This one also has a historic graveyard on it called the Old Fowler Cemetery, and it's a working farm. This is the landowner, Scott Price and Dr. Janice Chisholm from the Nation Ford Land Trust Board at the signing of the conservation easement. And that was our most recent project, and we have 2 more in that area. So the neighbors are talking to each other and encouraging participation. And so we're really proud of that sort of hot spot on McConnell's Highway, North Burris Road. Okay, so a total of 41 projects totaling over 11,700 acres, and they're all over the county. The colors don't mean anything. It's not color coded. That's just to show that you can see that some of them are sort of chained together, and we'd like to fill in those gaps for continuity and connections for a possible future greenway, for example. Some are a little isolated by themselves, some are public, some are private, some are owned by the county. Most of them are private property with conservation easement. Okay, so we just want to thank County Council for all your support over the years. This was when we did our 25th anniversary proclamation a couple years ago. And then we also have a lot of other partners and collaborators that have helped with these projects over time. We see that as a big plus and would like to build on that. And what we'll be doing, which is one of the goals in the strategic plan. So we are under number 2, Premier Parks. We're in the same goal, number 2. And these are our specific strategic planning goals for York County Forever. And again, we're working together with Parks to help with the whole goal number 2. And then goal number 2, initiative number 2, I just summarized. It's a little bit longer than that, but basically enhance partnerships and educate the public, engage and educate landowners so they know about the program, York County Forever, and then promote sustainability and resilience, which ties into the comprehensive plan rewrite, which we'll be doing in the next couple of years that we talked about already. So that's pretty much it from me. So I just wanted to see if you have any questions, and I'll try to answer them now. Or if we need more information, I can follow up with you later.
So, how proactive is this program? Or is it a kind of you wait for them to come, or are we out
Okay,
going after
so
them?
in the past, we haven't done a lot of public outreach. We don't go knocking on doors, sending letters or postcards. What we have been doing over the last couple of years is a little bit of public outreach where we go to, say, the Ag and Art Tour and Earth Day birthday, and we have coloring pages out for the kids. They color them in, and we talk to the parents about land conservation. But we don't have like a shopping list where we send people an invitation or ask them about their property, or, you know. What generally happens is they either contact us or they contact Nation Ford Land Trust. And then we work together with the land trust to get the project to happen. We do have a few that fell through because the landowner changed their mind, they couldn't make the numbers work, or the property changed hands, you know, different things. But most of them have been successful. And we have in our Premier Parks strategic plan, all these goals here and action items to be more proactive. We've already talked about that, and it's already spelled out. So we found our way to do that would be not to individually go and bug people, but to do public outreach programs where they could come and participate in a meeting and learn about all kind of land conservation opportunities. And oh, by the way, here's York County Forever. That kind of.
I didn't know if, so have y'all thought about doing, like looking at the landowners that have, I don't know,
Yes.
50 acres and greater, and
Yes.
doing a little postcard and just
Yes.
mailing it out to them?
We've been paying attention to what's been being said at your workshops and
Mhm.
everything, and that's in our milestones for the strategic plan.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and if you need more detail on that, we can provide it.
Because I really like this program. I think it's a great value to the county. I think it's not just for the taxpayers, because we get to save land, but we don't have to own it and maintain it and all that, but we still, on some of them, we get used for it. But, you know, we have the opportunity to do all this, and so I would really like, you know, I wanted to get, you know, meet you and see who
Yes.
you are, get an idea of the plan, and see what we can do to help, you know, if there's anything. Maybe it's not
Okay.
as perfect as you need it, but.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here, and I'll just be brief in that one of the things that I've done a couple of times, and I would like to do more of, is what I call the dog and pony show, which is to take a PowerPoint similar to this, but it has a little bit more detail on what the landowner, how that works, what the process is, what the criteria are. And I've presented it to the York County and Chester County Master Gardener Symposium, to the South Carolina DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution, and one of the civic clubs. But we don't we haven't sought out speaking opportunities. Another one was retired teachers. So that's on our list too, is to seek out those opportunities. So they can come to us, we can go to them. We're not just sitting there waiting for the
Right.
phone to ring.
Yeah, things like Farm Bureau and
It's gonna
Right.
add to, if you hear about anybody wanting to hear a program or whatever, let us know. We're happy to go out and share that with anybody. So sometimes you get requests about, hey, can so-and-so come speak? We're definitely welcome to get something like that.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about, the Catawba Water Management Group, which partners with some of the land conservation
Sure.
places to conserve land. They're doing it in the headwaters of the Catawba River, but
Mhm.
maybe there's opportunities, there also.
Right.
But.
So there are other opportunities too, because they don't have to go through York County Forever
Right.
Nation Ford Land Trust. There's this Farm Bureau has a land trust now. The South Carolina Conservation Bank helps fund projects. We are like a York County Conservation Bank. They're a statewide conservation bank, so they can fund the due diligence, they can fund the appraisal, the survey, and all the other things that lead up to the actual conservation easement.
I really like this presentation. It was very informative, especially the funding spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Where it's, it started at 1 mil
It's-
and dropped out obviously during the Great
We know that.
Recession. But then it
Yeah.
only picked back up at a quarter. And so, it looked like they hit the goal of 10,000 acres. I don't know exactly when that goal was hit. But then after that, it kind of slowed down. So, I would love to
Yeah.
be able to speed that back up and set another goal.
Right,
You
I
know.
would like to look back at there's a running total on our list of properties, and I would like to see when that actually, that 10,000 was hit.
Because,
We surpassed it, but I don't know if we surpassed it after that.
10.
I think,
Right.
I think it was after 2010, I forget what year it
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a good performance measure, and you target a strategic plan, that's what I'm hearing.
Right.
Yeah, very informative.
Stick on the dashboard.
I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. If you ever have any questions, we're at 18 West Liberty Street, and can you pass these down, please? And there's a lot of other information on the website, including the coloring pages.
Yeah, I did watch your video on the
Oh,
website,
okay, great.
So I have seen that.
Thank you.
But when I asked about it,
Okay.
so yes, no, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you putting this together kind of quick
Okay.
and coming in and visiting with us.
I'm happy to be here, thank you.
Mr. Chair, one other item, we talked about the foundation, and specifically 4 years ago, there was some work done on the Parks Foundation. But I would like to ask if staff would come back to our next meeting
Okay.
and educate us on that plan that was put together and look at it as a York County Foundation versus Parks Foundations that have subgroups that would include parks.
I'd like to hear, the pros and cons of an overall foundation like you're talking about, or does it need to be kind of separated out? My concern would be if it gets lumped together, while we may be a great council right now, there may be other councils that have different priorities and start to pick off the funds for something else if it's all in one foundation. So if you keep them kind of separate, at least they have to stay in the parks. Generally, councils can do whatever they want, but.
Which, and to that point, even though if it's a Parks Foundation, trails, I think, can go under that.
Right.
But there could be other uses in the future unrelated, so if it was just a generic York County Foundation. Because we're running into this right now as we're talking to, we've had some conversations with employers about contributing to trails, and they need to write a check to their foundation, writes a check to another foundation for tax purposes.
Yeah,
But I'm hearing that it being like some type of infrastructure being part of that foundation, and
Well, we'll
then
be
everything
interested to
gets.
see what they put together 4 years ago.
Yeah, I would love to see here.
Look forward to
We
that.
need a,
So I'll make that the form of a motion.
all right, I'll second that.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye. You need it restated. You get the gist? It's recorded.
Yeah, I'm interested in a foundation to see how that works out.
Perfect. Nothing in executive session?
Anything in executive session? No?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.